I was a patient or client here for probably for 3 or 4 months. In 2020, I had a son who committed suicide, and in 2021, my house burned. 2022, I got a divorce. In 2023, my mother passed, and I grieved for a while, mostly just by myself. And in June 22nd of 2025, I attempted suicide. And after the suicide attempt, I ended up at 12 Oaks, which is a part of the Acadia program. One of the things that they did for me, that kind of helped me, was the therapy, the basic therapy of CBT. I didn't feel that anyone cared about me. Um, I didn't think that anybody, I didn't think anybody cared about me. I didn't think anybody loved me, and that changed at 12 Oaks. I met Heather, and Heather kind of recommended me here, and Kim and the staff here embraced me and worked with me. It wasn't easy, and basically I wrote a poem. There was a counselor here named Jessica, and she asked us to write a poem. And the poem I wrote is "Mental Health" by BK, and it basically goes, I'm crazy, not stupid. My brain is broken, but I still use it. My heart is broken because people abused it. My feelings are hurt, but it's okay. I'll feel better one day. My emotion is sadness, but I project happiness. I'm filled with so much anger and rage. I'm a pit bull in a bird cage. I cry at night, my ears filled with tears. I scream in my pillow so no one can hear. I'm an apex predator, so I have no fear. My son committed suicide and my mother died. This caused me so much pain, I was surprised to be alive. I died holding pain inside, and I'm surprised and lucky to be alive. Sorrow, grief, mourning keep my pain roaring. I'm in so much pain, my pain is in pain. I feel insane from the pain in my brain. My heart, mind, body, and soul to be healed is my goal. And, I can't thank the staff here at Wellness enough. They embraced me, especially Sam, Jennifer, everybody. Pretty much just made me feel welcome and made me feel wanted. I was here for a long time, and I can't emphasize enough when it comes to therapy and healing or recovery, you have to want it more than the therapist wanted for you. I was explaining to Kim that in religion, if you take one step toward God, God will take 2 steps toward you. But when it comes to recovery, you have to take 2 steps towards your healing or your recovery, and the program will take 1 step, toward you. Once I left here, I moved to Nashville, and I joined the church, and I got a membership with the YMCA, and I started working, and that gave me purpose. And I think having a purpose is one of the most important things when it comes to yourself. Sometimes getting out of your own way or getting out of your head. Sometimes serving or helping others is an important thing to do. And with that being said, I just want to thank y'all so much for what y'all did for me. Because I'm a much different person right now than I was when I got here. I used to wear a mask to hide my emotions. I didn't necessarily feel like a man wasn't supposed to cry, but I just felt like I was supposed to control my emotions. And sometimes it was very difficult to control my emotions. And Sam, my therapist, going over vulnerability, accountability, creating an environment where, I felt safe to express myself and express my emotions. Even Nika's office was kind of a safe place for me. And I really felt so comfortable and safe in Nika's office that I would make her turn the lights on because I would cry instantly when I went into her office. And she always cared. They did pretty much everything that I requested of them. Even when I stepped down from PHP to IOP, I had an anxiety attack, ended up going to the hospital. But I took my treatment here very serious. I didn't use dope, and I don't recommend that for everybody. I always had a philosophy that you could use dope or you could learn to cope. And for me, coping was the most important thing. And and I say being here, I know that it's not easy living with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different ages. But I was lucky enough to have roommates that we ran our apartment kind of like a family, where I did the cooking and, I did washing dishes too, because I didn't trust the way people wash dishes. But a lot of times it's things that we complain about here that are very small, who washed dishes last, who ate my food. And those things are very small. And if you learn to work together, if you can't forgive here, if you can't get along here, if you can't, compromise or work with people here, there's no way when you leave here that you'll be able to do that in the real world. And I think it's very important to take baby steps, and not think too far ahead. One analogy that I always had is that if you look in your rearview mirror too much, then your future will look like your past. And the reason why your rearview mirror in your car is small is because you're not supposed to concentrate on it that much. And the windshield, I consider the future is very big, and it could sometimes be overwhelming. But before you consider the windshield thinking about your future, or stare in the rearview mirror thinking about your past, in the cockpit, you have to know how much gas you have. You have to know if your lights are on. You have to know what gear you're in. You have to know if your brakes are working. You have to know if your headlights are on. And I think the cockpit of the car represents your presence. So before you concentrate on the rearview mirror, or before you get overwhelmed by the windshield, just take note of where you are. Mindfulness, just being in the moment, not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past, and taking it, day by day and baby steps, and I can't thank them enough for what they did for me. I was not like this when I was here. I used to hide my pain and grief with comedy, so I would crack jokes a lot. And I do stand-up comedy, and I think that sometimes comedians will hide their pain or their grief with comedy, and I did that a lot. But my laughing right now and my smiling right now is not a mask. Dealing with therapy and understanding myself and working with God, my emotions right now are genuine, and I know who I am, and I know where I'm going, and I know what I want. And, this program is a beautiful program. Do not give up. Do not give up. Do not quit. Stay focused. For the staff, I always said that it was like a Groundhog Day for them, because the rotation of people coming in. Vanessa is here, and the same problems people argue about. Somebody's wearing my clothes. Somebody's eating my food. I want to sit in the front seat of the van. Simple things like that shouldn't interfere with your therapy. And I can't emphasize enough of working together, whether you live in there or as a community, being there for each other is very important. But, I want to thank y'all just for giving me the opportunity to come. I want to thank the staff for everything that they did. Kim, Mika, Sam, Jennifer, everybody. And they were there for me. And if you go to them, they will, based on my experience, they'll do pretty much whatever they can do for you. But you have to do for yourself as well. We're not children. So somebody shouldn't have to tell you to bathe or brush your teeth or make your bed. There are certain things that you have to take the initiative yourself, and those small things help you pattern your day. Something as simple as making your bed. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I got. And I can't thank y'all, especially you. I'm trying not to get emotional. I want to keep smiling. But thank you, Sam, so much. Like, you were the perfect person for me as far as therapy go. The tough love, the rough love, and the sense of part. And you may have questions or whatever, I answer them. But for the most part, I appreciate the opportunity that I was given here. I want to be a one and done. So once I understood, when it comes to CBT, and I'll just say that your feelings affect your thoughts, and your thoughts affect your behavior, and your behavior affects your habits, which will become addictions if you're not careful. So if you start basically at what you think, that will control how you feel, and that will control how you act. And that was pretty much the cornerstone and the foundation for me to change my future and bring me to a point where I can come back here. I moved to Nashville. I work in a high-end restaurant, so I'm comfortable financially. And like I said, I went to church and going to the gym. I look like it, but I'm in a lot better shape than what I look, so, that being said, I don't know what else I could say, but thank y'all, I thank wellness. I thank y'all. You said what, me?
Your poem was so beautiful.
Oh yeah, it was dark and it hurt, and I wrote it kind of out of frustration, but it was
also relatable.
Yeah, but it was like who I feel, and my pain, being in pain, was very hard. I filed a motion to set aside my divorce, and I had to gather information, and some of the information that I gathered was my son committed suicide, so I had to get his coroner report. And I had to get my mother's death certificate and, proof of the fire and homelessness and even being here. And once I had all those papers together, I went in Nika's office and I was just literally shaking pretty much how I am now. And as soon as she made eye contact with me, I just started screaming. I couldn't control myself. I was literally screaming. There were people here, nobody consoled me after that, which kind of concerned me, but, it just helped me to release grief and sorrow and mourning that I had in me and allowed me to move forward. So, there's always a better day.
Any questions?
Well, you know, like you quit.
I know. I already know. You know what I'm saying? I already know. I put a flat tire in your little scooter.
What restaurant that is you working in? That was 2 tables and 400 dollars. What you got going on?
It's a high-end restaurant. I've been in the restaurant industry for 37 years, so it's something that I do and that I perfected. For me, when it comes to the restaurant industry, when I first started in restaurants, and I was born in '71. Today is actually my birthday. I turned 55 today. When I started in restaurants, I remember one day. I was 17 years old, and I was serving plates. And back then we had beepers. And the only people who had beepers were doctors and drug dealers. And while I was reaching over the table, handing the food out, my beeper went off. And I was the only black person in the restaurant. I was one of the youngest people there. And everybody looked, and they were like, the busboy's a drug dealer. So, I started kind of carrying myself where I didn't want to portray that image. And it made me a lot friendlier. It made me, I didn't want to come across as aggressive. Being born and raised in Detroit, I grew up very aggressive. I saw more murders than a person should. I saw people go to jail. I've seen people kill people and get charged with manslaughter and get 5 years and be out of jail in 18 months. But as I evolved, I didn't use that mask to cover my aggression. I used my hospitality to cover my pain, and that was my stage. So I would be, very hospitable, anticipating guest needs. So the work that I do in the restaurant industry is not easy because you're anticipating needs. And sometimes you feel that people don't appreciate you. They'll ask you for a glass of water and not drink it, or you'll give them the best service that they've ever had and they won't tip you, but for me, that's my stage, outside of doing comedy, and I practice sometimes my comedy when I'm waiting tables. But as far as the restaurant I work at, it's just a high-end restaurant. I do highly recommend restaurant, maybe not for everybody, but restaurants give you cash every day. You have flexible hours, you get a discount on food, and you get to network. So you get to meet a lot of different people. So, you meet hundreds of different people every day. And if you have a goal or something that you're trying to do, the Lord will bring the right people across your path for you to have opportunities, that are pretty much endless.
What do you do now in the restaurant?
I'm a server. I wait tables. I'm a server. They were trying to get me to manage, but I just didn't want to go into management because it demands too much time, and I make more than managers in less time. But everybody doesn't. I've been in Delray Beach for 30 years, so I've seen the recovery process. When I came here, we used to make fun of people that were in the van. So when I came to wellness, I used to hide. I didn't want to be in the vans. I didn't want anybody to see me in the vans. And I say that to say, the service industry may not be for everybody, even though it is lucrative. Some people can't handle the fast cash, can't handle the flexible hours. So sometimes you may need something more structured. You cannot always chase what's going to bring you the most money. You need to chase what's gonna give you structure, what's gonna give you that will keep you on your path. You know, I hate to say, I've seen many people here that'll start off in the restaurant industry as a hostess or as a food runner or as a busboy, and they'll get promoted to bartender or server, and after a week or so of making money, I know at least 7 to 10 people that have been found dead in bathrooms because they got money and they weren't really ready for the money. You know, the money is not as important as the structure. You know, I had an aunt that used to say it's not about how much money you make, but just being in a position to make money that's important. You know, so you don't necessarily have to look for the job that's gonna give you the greatest amount of income, but look for the job that allows you to stay in your lane, stay on your path, and give you some kind of structure. You know, because hours do add up, whether it's 13, 15, 17, or $20 an hour, the money does add up. And take advantage while you're here. You know, while you don't have rent, while you don't have to pay for certain things, get your money, stack your money. You know what I'm saying? Don't just go crazy on shoes or clothes. Stack your chips. You know, for the most part, you know, apply for your food stamps, get your money, save it, use it wisely, so that when you do leave, you're prepared to leave and you're not just pushed out of the door without a place to go, and then, you know, you be on the treadmill coming back here because you can't find, you know, a way to sustain or maintain yourself or your lifestyle.
Your poem really touched me, and I suffer with suicidal ideation, and I've attempted twice. The second time I was in the hospital, so it about got me the second time. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing, because it really did help me.
Yeah, when it comes to suicide, like for me, there's a song by Tracy Chapman called "Give Me One Reason to Stay Here." Give me one reason to stay here, and I turn right back around. You have to find that one reason to stay here. My suicide, you know, I felt like I was in a tunnel. You know, I talked to my therapist about this. I felt like I was in a tunnel, and the light at the end of the tunnel, I felt was a train coming at me. And through wellness, you know, wellness and 12 Oaks, they turned that train coming at me. The light at the end of the tunnel was a train coming at me. They convinced me and showed me that the light at the end of the tunnel is the end of the tunnel, you know. And the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, and you have to keep moving forward, you know. So if you know that the light at the end of the tunnel is literally the end of the tunnel, and give me one reason to stay here and I turn right back around, you know, I don't know, it could be a cat, you know, it could be a grandparent, a parent, a sibling, you know, a lover, a friend, you know, a child. You have to find something that gives you purpose in being here, and you have to get busy living. You know, some people talk suicide and they talk about suicidal ideations, and it's not because they want to die. They just don't know how to live. You know, sometimes people have gone through so much trauma that that's more or less all they know. There are people that are afraid of better living, that life will get better for them, and they'll do something to self-sabotage because they're not even prepared, or they're not wanting to live better. You can find comfort in your grief, in your sorrow, and that could be a comfort zone for some people, you know, where people can't cheer you up because you're comfortable in your sadness or in your grief, you know. But the sun always comes out the next day, you know, and you get a reason to stay and you turn right back around. And wellness honestly gave me a reason to stay here. You know, just showing me that they cared, making me feel like somebody cared was the most important. And that's when I first got here. She used to call me her BK. You know, she was like my BK. When they said something, that feeling of, damn, somebody gives a fuck about me. You know, somebody cares about me. You know, there's nothing more important than that. You know, a lot of times people feel that don't nobody care, don't nobody know. When I attempted suicide or committed, I say committed suicide. Everybody say attempted suicide. But I went to residential at 12 Oaks, and for 21 days I didn't have my phone. And when I got my phone, you know, they gave me some good therapy and made me feel pretty good. But when I got my phone, in 21 days, I was off social media. You know, no, I didn't, and all my phones were going straight to voicemail, and there was no, what you doing? There was a group text I had with my children. I got 7 children. As a matter of fact, I got 2 granddaughters whose birthday I share, and they're 6 years apart. My youngest daughter put a text, has anyone seen Dad? And my 2 oldest children were like, "Don't worry about Dad, he's okay." And that felt bad because I just kind of felt like nobody cared, you know. But here, you know what I mean, they cared. Sam cared about me. Kim cared about me. You know, Nika cared about me. So whatever I needed, you know, they pretty much met every need that I had. So if you don't feel like anyone cares about you, know that they do care about you here. And don't be afraid to express yourself. Don't just clam up. Don't just stay quiet. You know, share and express yourself. You know, at least to staff, because they're professionals. You know, so even before you go to one of your co-clients or, you know, one of your family here, these people are professionals and they're trained to deal with, you know, it's nothing that you can come to them with that they haven't experienced. You know, and I will say this in passing, I used to think judges had a hard job because what they have to hear as far as evidence in crimes and different things that they have to hear people have gone through, to me was traumatic from a judge perspective. But learning about therapists and what they deal with directly, they have to talk to the victims of the crimes that the judges don't necessarily talk to. The people, they may see the evidence, but they're not talking directly to the children who have been abused or the women who have been abused or, you know, even men who feel misused. So I hold therapists' position and knowledge and experience in high regard, and they don't have to do heroin to know what you're going through. They don't have to have been abused to know what you're going through. I mean, there's only so much you can learn from books, but they learn from us. You know, they learn from the stories that we tell, and there are things that we tell them that are traumatic. They can never share, and they can never say it, and they have to hold that in. And they have to know how to console you, how to guide you, and how to lead you out of your dark place. They don't have to, and I know a lot of people feel like, you don't know me, you know, you never had to prostitute yourself, or you never had to do any drugs, or you never been on drugs, or you never been abused. Please trust these people's skills and their talents and their experience and their knowledge, you know, and their schooling, because they are professionals and they are prepared to help you with whatever it is that you're going through. And if they can't help you, they can direct you into a place where you can find the help that you need. So, you know, don't underestimate how much they care about you. Don't underestimate what their skill or what their ability is or even what they know. Trust them and they will help you. You know, it's like I said at the beginning, with religion, you take one step toward God, he'll take 2 steps toward you. When it comes to therapy, you have to take 2 steps. You have to show these people that you want to be helped. And you're not just here because you're homeless, or you're not just here because you're hiding, or you're not just here because you're taking a break. You know what I mean? You know, you take it serious and you'll get, you know, good responses. I want to be one and done, and I feel optimistic and positive. I feel wonderful about what was done for me here.
What's your YouTube channel?
Brandon K. Carter. Brandon K. Carter. Brandon K. Carter. It's a Brandon Carter. There's this Adonis goddess looking dude he calls himself the Keto King. I'm the total opposite of that, you know. I ain't kidding. I called him one time and it was like, maybe we could do it before and after, and he wanted to charge me money and I didn't do it. But I do stand-up comedy, so I have some stand-up comedy on my page. Mostly my page was tracking some of the things I went through. You know, when I left my mother at the airport and saw her for the last time, I kind of recorded that emotion. When my son passed, as soon as I got off the phone and I processed it somewhat, I got on the phone and just got on the phone and recorded my raw emotion of that. So, you know, I got probably 59,000 followers on my YouTube page. It went viral without me knowing, but I use it now almost as like a journal of my plight and just the things I've gone through. That being said,
Any other? All right, thank you, BK.
thank you. Now I'm about to go get drunk. I'm kidding.
All right, guys, sign-in sheets are up here.